One of the founders of cultural Zionism, Echad Ha'am, famously said, "More than the Jews have kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jews." A beautiful idea portraying our relationship or marriage with our tradition. There's a responsibility there, a joint collaboration as individuals and as a collective with our faith. Our tradition guides us to grapple with Jewish text in a myriad of ways so we can ultimately find deep connection and purpose to enrich our lives. We're expected to not only listen to our Torah, but also to process it, digest it, and find ways to insert ourselves into the stories and make them our own. And throughout Jewish history, Jewish text has been primarily expressed through written word. And though very often the narrative segments of our Torah are so vivid, they paint such rich imagery, we can sometimes see it in our mind's eye. Other times, however, Jewish culture has gifted us with an overlooked modality for commentary on Torah through visual art. There's a misunderstanding sometimes that visual art is prohibited in Judaism. But according to educator and author Gabriel Kaplan-Meyer, she reminds us that art has played an integral role in transmitting biblical texts and making meaning for each new generation since the beginning of time. In her essay, Biblical Art, she reminds us about the great discovery made by the American archaeologist Clark Hopkins in 1932. Hopkins unearthed, literally and figuratively, a synagogue located in the desert city of what was Dura Europas, now in modern-day Syria. Dura Europas was Hellenistic, Corinthian, and Roman border city that was located on the southwestern bank of the Euphrates River in the 1st century of the Common Era. The synagogue that was located there was found with an Aramaic inscription. Aramaic was the common spoken language of the time, like English is here today in America. The Aramaic inscription helped date the synagogue to 244 of the Common Era, where exiled Jews gathered to worship among Greeks, Byzantines, Persians, and Christians. Just imagine what it was like to be a Jewish person back then in that part of the world. Yeah, say it, wow. The art that was found in this synagogue helps dispel this myth that Judaism has always had a prohibition on visual images. This is not to be confused with worshiping other idols where art is produced to venerate God. This, as the second commandment states, is still not kosher. Creating art for the sake of engaging with our text, however, is not only celebrated in early rabbinic Judaism as a vehicle for honoring and transmitting a sacred text, but also continues to be a magnificent form of interpreting and bringing our text to life today. It is said that the visual art found in the Dura Europas played a vital role in transmitting Torah. And after that, for centuries later, especially in the medieval period, scribes would finish writing a Jewish text and then send it off to an illustrator who painted around the edges of the page. Many of these works were very detailed and ornate and colorful, and the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion in Cincinnati actually houses some of these texts, and the works are simply stunning. We see these on Haggadot for Passover, marriage ketubot, and other texts used for Jewish practice. And this not only embellishes the text, but it gives the illustrator an opportunity to interpret the text for themselves and communicate a Jewish interpretation through their work, which perpetually generates dialogue between the artist and the viewers. Consequently, the reader is given two modes of transmission, the art and the words on the page. In this week's Torah portion, Tzav, we see a different kind of art. As you know, Leviticus is a law code, and much of it is not written in narrative form, but really as a guide for ritual practice. And Tzav is not a particularly long Torah portion, but it is a dense one with instructions given to Moses to disseminate to Aaron and his sons. And the Torah portion opens with God giving these instructions to Moses to pass on to Aaron and his two sons, Nadav and Avihu. And about 2 chapters into this, the instructions pause, and an emotional, ritualistic ceremony in narrative form disrupts the directives. And I'd like to just read you a few verses from this beautiful moment. And if you can try to imagine being in the desert, having built this exquisite structure that is the tabernacle, a holy place, very similar to our beautiful chapel today, minus the stained glass windows and really all the windows because it was a tent. And Aaron and his sons step up to become priests to God, sort of an early form of rabbis. Moses brought Aaron and his sons forward and washed them with water. He put on the tunic on him, affixed a sash upon him, clothed him with a robe, and put the ephod, a sleeveless garment worn by Jewish priests in the Torah, placed the decorated band with which he tied him. He put the breastpiece on him and put into the breastpiece Urim and Tumim, which we believe are ritualistic stones that were probably colorful. And he set the headdress on his head. And on the headdress, in the front, he put the gold frontlet, the holy diadem, as God had commanded Moses. I don't know about you, I don't dress like that in the morning. It's so meticulous. It's so thought out. It's so detailed. Each piece was created with this incredibly special role and prescriptively placed upon them in this tent of meeting in front of all of the gathered Israelites. This ritualized moment figuratively paints a beautiful picture. The elegant and purposeful garment, which is a work of art in and of itself, is created and placed on Aaron and his sons and symbolizes the great pleasure and responsibility they were given to do God's work. But it's not just about the garment, but the story and the description that is included in this particular passage. Again, this story is placed in the middle of the Torah portion that for some may initially read like a list of tasks. And here comes the story. There's an understanding that law, devoid of purpose and intentionality, is meaningless. It wasn't enough to articulate the priest's responsibilities. The redactors of Torah included a moving story to help in our worship experience. The story is meant to move us, get us in the mood in performing our Jewish duties with devotion. And as keepers of Torah, each generation is responsible to find their intentionality from their heart, whether it's through literature, text analysis, conversation, song, poetry, prayer, dance, or art. The text is the foundation that gives us the opportunity to interpret and grapple in order to find growth in our lives. Finding the art that interprets Jewish text in the Dora Europos gave us a small sneak window peek into Jewish practice our ancestors shared. What will our Dora Europos be? Which parts of our tradition will we preserve for the generations to come and bear witness to our Judaism? I invite you all today to bring every part of your identity to your Jewish practice and give voice to our Jewish texts. And Passover is next week, our celebration of freedom, while also honoring all the work that we must do to make our world a better place. And we have a wonderful opportunity to bring joy, peace, and creativity to each of our Seder tables for us, our neighbors, and the future generations to come. Shabbat Shalom.